does it affect the working environment? What is so negative about that?
People have to work more to promote the economy.
Yes, the amount of people who are actually able, who are being productive, who are able to work because they're young, right? It's declining. So with now I think we can just Google see the percentage of the population in general in Japan, but definitely there are more people who are aging than if we look at the numbers, those people who are able to work, right, and to provide for those people who are aging. And actually, because of that, in Japanese culture, it's quite common that if there is a family and let's say 3 or 4 children, and there are daughters and sons, one son or one daughter would be staying with the family to be able to take care of the parents. And this daughter or the son would never get married because it would be, he's not supposed to get married because, or she's not supposed to get married because she's supposed to take care of her parents. It's one of the traditions. I'm not saying that it's applicable to every single family, but the idea was that there would be one person in a family at least who would be working and providing financially.
Okay, in addition to that, I have a Japanese student in my class. I teach English on native camp. So he was telling me that in Japan, you're expected to actually work for one company all your life.
For one
company.
Yes,
to do one job.
Yes.
Unlike in some countries where you can work, let's say in Russia, for example, the lady that was processing my admission before I came, one day she woke up and said, I no longer work at UFO, which means she goes to job somewhere else.
Yeah.
In Japan, it's not like that. If you start at Panasonic, you are going to work in Panasonic until you get retired in Panasonic. You cannot change your job so often. Okay?
Yeah.
So that also is a major challenge which they are having. Okay, and secondly, Japan also has the issue with entrance exams for universities. There's a special exams for universities, and if you fail that exam at your prime age where you're supposed to get into the university, you're unlikely to get into any other university actually.
Yeah.
You keep trying for that very university.
It's so harsh.
Yeah.
It's really harsh. And the thing is also what I remember I was reading about this, it's not just the knowledge, it's not just the answers to the questions, but it's the speed.
Yeah.
You have to be able to answer really quick. And here it's we don't have this rule. I mean, you're expected to give an answer, you're expected to contemplate over a certain statement, but it doesn't have to be so quick, so fast. The teacher or the person who is the commission, right, members of the committee, they're not going to put any pressure on you if you are kind of slowing down. Versus in Japan, it's not like that. And for the company, this was in a way something similar to what we were experiencing back in the Soviet time. Because I mean, it was suggested, it was okay, it was not considered as something negative if a person kept working at the same company till the end of his life. It was like, it's very common for the celebrations, birthday celebrations, when people would be getting together and saying, sharing their nice opinions and saying speeches for the making statements for the person, for a lady, for a man, and saying, you turn 60 or you turn 55, but for so many years, for 40 years or for 20 years, you've been working here. And this was regarded as something usual because at that time there was no market economy. It was another economic model. It was planned economy, and private sector was not developed. It doesn't exist. So all the companies belong to the state. So actually, it was considered okay if you've been hired by some kind of state company. It was okay to keep working there for many years. Now we're more flexible, and I think the representatives of the younger generation are even more flexible. And it's not a thing to move from one city to another, to change one company, to say, okay, I tried, I didn't like it, I want to try something new. It's fine. It's okay. Yeah, and as you stated, and as you mentioned in Japanese culture, the pressure of the society is really important. I mean, it's one of the major factors that has an influence on the people's behavior. So it's like, it's not going to be considered nice if I leave the office earlier. And it's not going to be nice if I express my opinion, speaking about non-verbal, for example, non-verbal behavior. If I show my emotions in an open way, it's not going to be polite. So actually, and also for Japanese culture, you're not supposed to say no. It's not polite. For us, it's for the upfront cultures, right? It's either yes or no. For Japanese cultures, they would avoid. They would say something, or they would say, do you have any information for me? Yes. And they would say, what kind of information? Nothing. Or they, like, no, I don't. The structure would be different, right? I have a presentation in Russian, but I will translate it into English, and now I will translate the content so guys, for the foreign speakers, foreign students, though, you would not have any problems understanding, because it's about Japanese culture, and in a way it explains how people work and how people approach their tasks. Okay, so let's take a short look. And by the way, if you look at the percentage, if you look at the description of the Japanese population, this is one of the unique situations, this is one of the unique cases where you see list percentage of foreigners. They try to preserve only the representatives of their nation. And well, yes, there are families where you can see a husband from another culture, wife from another culture, but it doesn't happen regularly. It's not something that, it's something very rare. And by the way, another interesting notion that I remember, I heard, it was a comment made by one of the foreign students, that a Japanese manager who went abroad and who studied at a foreign university and then came back to share his experience. Normally, you would consider this person as a, in a way, he would be in a privileged position because he has this experience, right? And people would be treating him in a, at least in a friendly way and trying to ask what is his opinion and so on. For the Japanese culture, it's kind of like, oh, you lived abroad, so you kind of forgot all the local values, and this is not something positive. So they don't regard it as a, it's not that bad, but it's not that good either. See, so how the perception, how the mentality works, it's really interesting. Okay. And of course, some of the features, some of the national characteristics are due to the geographical position of Japan. Look where the country is located, right? And because of that, because they are isolated in a way, their mentality is so different, and they are not included, or at least that actively, to a such degree, in global communication. We cannot avoid it in the 21st century, we cannot avoid it. No one can. But for Japan, for Japanese people, it's a particular case because of their geographical position as well. Now, yes, practically you can hardly find a foreign representative in company. And they also have this terms to identify a foreign person. They would call him uti, soto. They would use these words, and they would say, they would use this particular word for any foreigner. It would be gaijin. Gaijin would be any foreign person, and he comes from outside. He comes from another culture. And actually, no matter how well you can communicate and how well you can express your ideas in Japanese, you would still be considered gaijin. And the same applies to Chinese culture. It's like now there is this notion, and we have this language skills and desire to learn Chinese. And yes, it's certain students sign up for these courses, but also the truth is that it doesn't matter how well you speak the language. You're still going to be considered to be a foreigner, an outsider, because you don't come from the same culture.
Isn't it the same with Russia? Is it the same with Russia?
No.
It's similar.
No, I wouldn't say so. No, in Russia, I mean, it's of course.
Or it's worse.
I think, of course, it's kind of subjective, but what I heard from foreigners, that actually, as soon as they started communicating in Russian, they could feel this difference. They could feel this difference. So here, it's the language, the ability to communicate would matter. Versus in Japanese culture, you would be different. So it's, yeah. What else? Oh, okay. The ability, and you guys remember this images of Japanese fans. Here in Edinburgh in 2018, we had World Cup with lots of Japanese fans, fans from Peru, from France, from Senegal, from Egypt, according to the games that were played here. So Japanese fans, Japanese tourists were the ones who grabbed all the garbage, the local stadium, and they put all the garbage in the separate cans, and they took all the garbage away. So this is actually one of their very important characteristics of the Japanese mentality. They do take care of the environment, and it doesn't matter whether they're in their home country, whether they're abroad, they would be trying to clean up this place after them. So they're very, very clean. Very clean. Okay. Yes, here is actually an illustration.
I remember that story.
Yeah. It was, I mean, here in Edinburgh, it was so special because, okay, in Moscow and St. Petersburg, you would always be able to find foreigners. They are spoiled, as we say. Here, we couldn't imagine having so many people, so many representatives of different cultures. And I think there was this program on the news, and the TV anchor, the local one, was saying, oh, now the whole city and the citizens would be very depressed. Because we used to have this, celebrations, we used to have this foreign tourists, foreign fans, walking down the streets, screaming and shouting, yelling something, but it was fun. It was something unusual. Now, they are trying to, when we were talking about environment, and there is a very interesting idea in Japanese culture how to manage environment. They would try to leave as it is, to leave everything as it is. They don't want to violate this environmental structure. This is due to the fact and to their behavior back in the let's say 17th century, when they were actually using forests, using wood. Now it's different, and now they're trying to maintain this natural harmony and not to damage environment. Okay. Yes, very special. It's a holiday. Well, they do have a number of holidays, but this is one. It's cherry tree, and they come. There are tourists from all over the country. They come to this particular place. They come to Tokyo. They come to this park to witness the blossoming of the cherry tree, because it's beautiful. It's pretty. And they come with their families, with their friends. They bring the food together. They are ready to spend there the entire day, or maybe even more time, and they just want to celebrate this holiday. Normally, now there are plenty of, well, not many, but still some bloggers, and they are sharing their experience, who've had a chance to live in Japan, or maybe who now are there or who studied there, and they are talking about their attitude to living conditions. So for a Japanese family, what is really important to try to maintain this harmony on a natural level, not to damage forests, not to damage trees and rivers. And the houses and the apartments are really, really tiny, really small, but very clean, very clean. Okay? And also when we talk about Japanese garden, this would be a very interesting phenomenon, cultural phenomenon, because they're actually following the natural landscape. And they're not, this is something that is not touched by human. Also, when we talk about Japanese culture and Japanese attitude to work environment, we have to take into consideration the influence of Buddhism. Because we can mention also another religion, which is
Shintoism.
Yeah, right, thank you. But the thing is that in Buddhism, the attitude to relationship between human beings, the attitude to work is also written down, and it's explained that about 60% of Japanese people have those small temples within their houses.
They call them shrines.
Yeah, which is, it's for us, it's something like, it's a very interesting phenomenon. And we're not used to this, but for them, it's part of their culture. And what is related to this idea, to this philosophy, is the fact that the people in Japan, they are ready to sacrifice their time, to sacrifice their life, to work. And even it was in the video that they, after work, they have to go and celebrate something, participate in some kind of social event together with their team. Versus in the Western mentality, in the European mentality, they are expected to leave the office and say, okay, now I'm family time. I want to see my family. I want to spend time with my kids, with my grandchildren, and I want to go and enjoy this time in a restaurant or just go for a walk. And work is separated. So working environment is separated. In Japanese culture, working environment is actually part of their life. And yes, if we look at the architecture, it's also very unique and interesting. You just look at the architecture in main Japanese cities like Tokyo, for example. You find these structures that do not look alike if we compare them with the architectural masterpieces in the European cities. It would be absolutely something very, very different. And it has to do with the history, and I'll also relate it to the fact that for the Japanese architecture, one of the main ideas is to have this connection with the history, with the place where the emperor temple or emperor palace used to be located. In the Western culture, there was no emperor, so you don't think about the emperor palace, right? And moving on to the way people in Japan treat and think about business communication, development, maintain business relationship. First of all, what is important? Now I think we can talk about digital business cards, but in general, if you want to maintain good relationship, if you want to establish business contacts with Japanese people, you have to know that for them, when they take this, when you present your business card, you really have to be very, very polite, and you have to take it like this, and then you don't have to crunch it. You have to be, you have to put it in your folder, but to be very careful with it. It actually demonstrates your ability to focus on the relationship and to respect the person whom you are talking to. So this is also very important. And the way they treat senior citizens, the way they treat teachers, professors, whoever is of different age, or whoever is of different status. And if you want to organize a conversation or business negotiations with the representatives of a Japanese company, you have to find a person with a similar rank position. So you're sending, let's say, head of the department, or it has to be head of the department, and you have to send head of the department to participate in the negotiations, right? It has to be like similar position. And of course, the CEDAW Code of Ethics does have a very important influence of the national character. Yes, we just mentioned this Karashi, which is now it's I cannot say that it has changed completely. It is changing slowly because for the representatives of the younger generation who are aware of other conditions in other countries, they are trying to kind of come up with their own working standards. But the pressure of the community is still present, so it's not going to be that easy. What is also important, you have to be punctual. You cannot reject something directly. You cannot say, no, I don't want this, because no is a bad word. You cannot see a Japanese person showing his emotions or her emotions in a very open way. Speaking about the non-verbal behavior, it's not easy to, for us, for example, it's sometimes easy to say, oh, the person is bored, or you are happy, or you are sad about something, right? For them, they don't show their emotions. They're very discreet. They're not eager, and they know that it's not okay. Hierarchy is important. What else?
They're always very thankful. Each time you finish teaching them, they say this arigato. They're always thankful.
Always, yes, they are very polite.
Yes.
And say, and it's also interesting. My grandfather, he traveled to Japan back in the Soviet time, and I remember. Well, I was a child at the time, but then later on, when we had this conversation with him, and he said, "This was one of the most interesting trips in his life, and he's traveled a lot, and because of the mentality, because of the cultural differences, and at that time, it's back in the 70s, 1977, I think, and he came back and he just, my granny, she looked at him and she was like, what happened? What happened to you during this trip? I said, no, I'm just so impressed that I've seen so many different things, and I talked to so many different people, and it just kind of needs some time to contemplate over what I've seen. And it was a case when he loved taking photos. He had this camera, the real one, and not the digital one. And he wanted to take photos of the people on the streets, and every time he said he would ask permission, and some ladies, they would say, thank you for taking a photo of me. Yes, they would say they would do this. Here we have some descriptions, and yes, Japanese attitude to work based on the collectivistic mindset. They work as a group. They have to support each other at the same time. If the whole team is working, if all the members of the team are working, I'm not supposed to leave the room. I have to remain seated. And there are some things. And any questions, guys? No. Everything is clear. Would you like to go to Japan?
Yes.
Yes. What kind of questions would you like to ask? If, let's say, if we have maybe a Japanese student or a Japanese professor, what kind of questions would you like to ask
Actually,
him?
I have a Japanese friend.
Oh, interesting. So,
he studied here in Russia for half a year, maybe.
Mhm.
So, and after that, he came back to Japan, but he decided not to go.
Went back to Japan.
Yeah. Yes.
He said came back, but not in Japan.
Hmm?
You mean he went back to Japan?
Yes.
oh, okay. So he returned back.
Yeah, he
Okay.
came back, but after that, he started to travel, and he decided not to go to one of these big corporations. And I think that actually sometimes he says sorry too many times when we talk. Sometimes he tries to avoid some topics which I think are interesting to talk about, but which can be controversial.
Yeah.
So, and yes, kind of different topics. And I think that sometimes, I don't know, maybe it's just another culture, and that's why we cannot understand each other. So, but he has absolutely another major, so we talked before only about English, but he's a bio-engineer or something like that. Yeah. So I think I asked all questions I had before. So.
Wow. But still, I think, it's incredible that for many years we have these stereotypes. We lived and we didn't know too much about the world around us. We just could think about the stereotypes. And now you can communicate with a real representative of this culture. Isn't that incredible?
By the way, when I asked him, maybe it was 2 or 3 months ago, is it true that Japanese are working really hard, that you are so productive and everyone in the world knows that, oh, you're Japanese, you're working like so many hours, very hard. And he said like, not really, actually. It's kind of stereotype. Some of them works like that, and it's true, and mostly it's older generation. But he said that sometimes some of his friends, they just stay at work and they just sit, but they do not.
Yeah, that's the thing that was mentioned in the movie. It doesn't lead to high productivity levels. So you just, you would be sitting in front of your computer doing nothing, or playing cards, or doing some crazy things. And actually, how would this affect the development of the business? And in which way? No, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to increase the profit or something. But you're going to be following the rules. You will remain seated.
It's strange, actually.
There's something about Japanese culture when it comes to corporate environments. They are sticklers to standards. So, of course, the standards could mean sitting down in your office from 9 to 5. It doesn't necessarily mean you're doing something. So, they stick to standards. That's why when we talked about, for example, their products, if you have business dealings with Chinese and Taiwanese, I found that a big difference. I didn't know they were quite different. If I'm